I'm Renee Ballard, a design strategist and the host of Let's Talk Design. This is where we're speaking to the talented creators and creatives about the business of design. And today we are joined by Tamzyn Adding. Welcome.
Hi.
Tamzyn is a New Zealand designer. She could also be known as the Queen of Colour. She has worked in multiple creative fields, but there was a pivotal moment back in 2013 when she was working as a celebrity fashion stylist and she reached her limit, threw her hands up to the sky famously and roared, "No more beige." That moment was the catalyst that inspired Tamzyn to create the international wallpaper and textile brand Miss Lolo. Then, fast forward 10 years to 2023, Tamzyn has moved from Auckland to Queensland, and in 2024, she decided she was nowhere near done with the war on beige, and she's expanded her design empire now with the Beige Epidemic, which is the ultimate destination to shop collections from some of the world's most coolest designers, from everything from wallpapers to fabrics to cushions. Thank you for joining us today, Tamzyn.
Oh, no problem at all.
So a bit of background, I met Tamzyn back in 2023. Tamzyn was in Melbourne and she came into our studio to introduce herself, and so we could see the product ranges. And I remember just being hit with this triple threat. She was dressed to kill, she had these dazzling designs, and she had chutzpah up the wazoo. And I was just like, Jesus, who is this woman? An absolute powerhouse. And then since then, I've been watching your journey. You've moved, more recently from New Zealand to Australia, and then you've got you seem to you're expanding in every which way. Why I thought it would be great to talk to you is you are managing, well, you're insanely creative, but you're also on the business side as well. And in the design world, that's no mean feat. Like there's no easy feat. So I was hoping we could tap into first of all, your creativity process. Your work is exquisite, and I will post on our social media channels, with your permission, of course, some of your work, because what's amazing is anyone can use color. We're all allowed access to the palette, but people that can balance it without making it, sometimes, when color goes wrong, you want to puke. You manage to balance it. It's an absolute rare gift. So thank you. Are you able to share your creative process of how you go from the blank drawing page to one of your ranges or creations?
Oh, God, I wish. I think for me, it's kind of more innate. So I'm literally from a family of artists. So everyone can draw. That's all we can do, right? So I was raised in that whole art world. So it is literally just sort of innate for me, it runs through my veins. So there's not a lot of thought that goes into. Everyone's like, oh, what's the process? And you're pulling ideas from this, that, other thing. And I'm like, actually, no. Like there are times I'll be in a bookshop and I'll be like photographing book covers I'll be, it's not unheard of for me to be photographing what someone's wearing on a TV interview, or it's literally everywhere. So there is no, people will do these ranges and, this range is all about birds and this range is all about whatever, right? Mine have absolutely no theme running through it. It's just like, love that. I'm going to turn that into something. Oh, love that idea. That could be cool. And that's just how it's been. It's always been really sporadic where I get inspiration from. I generally don't follow any trends at all. There's stuff I like and there's stuff I don't like, and that's just kind of how it works. I'd love to say there was a really intense thought process behind it, but there just isn't. That's just what it is.
That's a really good point, is the process. I don't think it can. I think some designers probably do have a thought process, and maybe if you've got more restrictions, like if it's, a lot of people at the design table, a lot of stakeholders.
Yeah.
But to me, I don't know if this happens to you, but to me with like creative visual products, I know I'm going to sound nuts, but the things, if I'm stuck or things talk to me, like this is random, but when I put my wedding dress on, the right one, I knew I could see her vibrating on the hanger, and I put her on, this is like 300 years ago, I put her on and she said to me, "I want pink shoes and a Priscilla Presley veil." And I was like, got you. And so sometimes I ask the design, I'm just like, what do you want? Like, what do you need? Like funny corner, what are you asking for? Do you ever come across something like that?
Yeah, like it's weird. So recently, octopuses have started appearing everywhere. Sounds really weird, right? So I'm seeing an octopus, and then I'm watching a show on TV, and it was a renovation show, and they'd done this octopus splashback. And I was like, that's random. And then the same day I was watching the project and they interviewed a guy who came on with an octopus top. And then later that afternoon, my youngest daughter came down and she said, Mum, I've crocheted you an octopus. And I turned to my husband, I was like, oh my God, we've got to design something with octopuses. And so, yeah, we've got a wallpaper with octopus, we've got artwork with octopus now for no reason other than I kept on seeing it. And I'm like, it's telling me something. I've got to do something with this. But yeah, so yeah, I totally get it.
Fun. Sometimes I totally get what you mean, certainly with things dropping in, but I also get these weird pangs. I don't know if this happens to you, but I just instantly get a pang of like Morocco, like an archetypal vision, and it just
Yeah,
boom. Like I could be in an
yeah,
accounting meeting and then boom, Morocco. Like I can see the date palms, I can see the sunset, I can see the Sahara. And I'm like, oh, and it's so, and I know what you mean. It just, you get this cross
yeah,
line and you don't question it.
yeah. I just do without a
Yeah.
lot of thought. And I'm always like, you know, like for me, my whole thing has always been, we call it Marmite in New Zealand, you guys call it Vegemite. You know, as long as everyone knows who we are, I don't care if they love it or hate it, because it really doesn't have any bearing on me at all, because that's what art is. People love certain things and people hate certain things. Who cares? There's enough of us in the world for it, you know, to have enough people who are going to love it. And that's been my concept. I don't care about designing for the masses. There's a million other companies that want to design for the masses. And like, you know, I do get those comments. Oh, if you designed more in beige, you'd sell more. Oh, you know, I mean, that's vomit wallpaper. Who would have that in their house? Well, actually, a lot of people. Hence why I'm still here.
100%. And I think the vibe I get from your work or the undertone or the ethos, I just feel freedom. And it's got this
Mm.
lovely devil may care. And so, like, on a personal note, we're renovating our house at the moment, which is a living hell. We're not living in it, but it's just, ugh.
Yeah.
And, you know, the bathroom tiles are being picked, and tiles literally will outlast Jesus. Like, there are still tiles from
Mm-hmm.
ancient Rome hanging around.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's a heavy decision. And I get all obsessive with the math and the grid and the lines, and it's a whole thing. So I'm writing my edge because, you know, of course, there's the temptation, resale value, and draw a white bathroom. But
Oh, God.
I know, and
Yeah.
so I'm writing my. So instead, I have gone with, speaking of Morocco and ancient Rome. Ancient Rome, Morocco meets the beach. So it's this. I just want this feeling because it's water. Like the bathroom is water, so I want water to feel like it's there. And then I
Mm.
added gold hardware to every tapware. You know, I can feel the tall poppy syndrome. You know, your parents scoffing, going, "Who
Yeah.
do you think you are? Gold taps, Liberace."
Yeah.
And that's so from your work, I get a really sense of freedom, like in a really positive way, like devil may care.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, okay, so you're going to sell a house, right? I mean, how many houses do you sell in their lifetime? Unless you're a professional house flipper, bugger all. However, you've got to live in that house for years and years and years. So just make it something you want to be in. And there is so much research around, you know, the power of color and the impact it has on mental health. So why would you not bring it into your home? Pink makes you happy, bring pink in. If, you know,
Yes,
rainbows make you happy, rainbow, do a feature wall of rainbows. Who cares?
100%. And I've heard you talking about this before with dopamine. Is dopamine color,
Mm,
dopamine pattern, dopamine
yeah,
palettes?
yeah,
Tell me.
that's exactly it. Well, it is. It's just the impact that mental health and color have is undeniable. And it's, yeah, I get really frustrated because, you know, you go into any, you know, doctor's rooms or hospitals and it's white on white on white, bland. But if they, you know, if you can bring it in, the change can be huge. I mean, they do it for little, you know, babies and stuff, right? You know, babies can only see certain colors, so they design everything for babies in those colors because it's meant to stimulate brain development. Well, why not do it for adults?
I so know what you mean with the waiting room at the doctor's, because I literally call
Oh,
it, like when I have to refer to that color, I call it waiting room green. You know, it's that
oh,
patronizing,
yeah.
sagey, limey, avocado-y. It's no
Yeah,
color.
yeah. And you don't have to have heaps of color, right? You can do it with super cool pattern and textures and everything else, but make it have some sort of a personality at least. And do not give me a plain colored paint wall. Oh, yeah, we've got like, you know, we've done this one wall in freaking sage. We've got color in the house. No, you don't.
I know. I totally agree. And moving just into more of the creative side, totally get you. I'd love to hear about your business side, because I understand in your earlier days of
Mm.
business, you took on an investor. Are you able to
Mm.
share some of the good and the bad of how that kind of went, either which way?
Yeah. I guess in the early days, you know, I had, yeah, an investor wanted to come on board from a very big, he came from international business, right? So really, really different outlook, but had never worked in the creative realm at all. So we were forever butting heads because his mentality, like I think I've said this in a couple of interviews, was we ended up falling, you know, not working together over white sheets, which sounds insane. So he would push and push and push because at this point we had a decent following. I think we were about 50,000 or whatever. And he was like, "You've got this huge following. Everyone needs white sheets." And I was like, "I'm not doing white sheets for the sole reason that everyone does white sheets." Then he couldn't get his head around why I was so resistant to it because I was like, "No, we have to hold our position as this color force. If we all of a sudden go, we're going to do white sheets because we want to sell to the masses, we have completely lost our position in the market." And that's how we ended up, parting ways over freaking white sheets of all things.
I have, because, I did some research and I have heard you talk about this. And what I think it really brings up is a massive issue challenge in our industry is, so I think it's three components. One is creativity, two is entrepreneurialism, and three is investor. And they're not overly the same person. And I think, an entrepreneur, I think the word entrepreneur has been hijacked a bit to mean I started a business in my garage and I sold it for $1 billion next year. And to me, an entrepreneur is someone who enjoys the game, like the crafting something out of nothing, the engine running, like the magic. An investor is like spreadsheets, ROI, KPI, a lot of acronyms, a lot of stuff. And that's just, it sounds so good, but I think, we've never had an investor, but I certainly have worked in companies with boards and investors, and they've got this, I get it with the white sheets, man, because he's just like, let's just make lots of money. And you're like, cool, we should go into stockbroking. But I'm crafting something, and that's, it's like fire and ice.
Yeah, and then there's a really fine line. Like you've got to have, a pretty decent sort of business acumen to you anyway, but you've also just got to be really confident that what you're doing is on the right trajectory because it's really easy to get swayed by that and lose yourself in that.
100%. And because it's, especially in our industry, jobs don't drop in every day. So when a job drops in and you're like, oh, I need to pay bills and it's not really a good fit and it feels so wrong, especially, I'm 46, so I was raised, people please, I was raised with the boomer parent with the carrot, like jump higher. And so you just want to people please, you just want to say yes. And then you got the panic of like, payroll and stuff. And I remember once a brief came in from Dubai to design a certain kind of backpack. I was like, can we do it? Can we, I'm going a million miles an hour. And Chris is like, dude, we don't design backpacks. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But so being able to say no is tough. So I can see how you get swayed, like anyone gets swayed. With where you are in your career and where you are with your business, is there any advice you would give to creatives and designers who are a couple of steps behind you?
Oh God, there's probably a million. I think one of the big ones is don't be dangled by that financial carrot. That's like for me in those early days with the investor, and I saw the dollar signs of what they could bring. It ended up actually costing me shit ton because I got to buy them out in the end. That's a really one to be really careful of. And then obviously we were discussing it earlier, got huge social media hack. I think I probably made the mistake of putting all my eggs in one basket, which was, we were selling, 90% e-commerce online. And then to have that lost and now realizing had I kind of looked at other ways over the last sort of 12 years so that everything wasn't in one basket, it wouldn't have hit quite as hard as it did.
And do you think that, like, going forward, will you see Miss Lolo and the Beige Epidemic moving more into stockists to help diversify that?
No, we've actually just started advertising into the US. So my thinking was obviously New Zealand is a funny little country. So when I left, there was a lot of people who were really angry about that in New Zealand because I was seen as being disloyal to the country, and it was quite a well-known brand there. So and then I've come over here and I was like, yay, I'm going to Australia and we're just going to go guns blazing in Australia. And then we get to Australia and then I get hacked and I had to literally go back to ground zero again. So in that whole process where we've had to brand to the Beige Epidemic and everything, I was just like, well, fuck it. Like, why limit myself to this country? Why not open the channels up and, advertise into the US or advertise into the UK or whatever, right? Because we can send our product anywhere. It doesn't matter. So that's what the whole kind of plan was. To me, it doesn't make a difference where that sale comes from. Yeah, I
100%.
guess the whole
Yeah.
kind of focus has kind of changed a little bit.
Yeah, I think, like I was saying earlier, I lived in New Zealand for a while, so I know what you mean. New Zealand it's so beautiful. It's so pristine.
Yeah,
And I was in the South Island for 2 years. I think I went to Auckland, like the North Island once. I understand there's a difference between them, but I thought it was like a friendly banter between Australians and Kiwis until I got to New Zealand. I was like,
yeah,
we're
no,
just unliked. Like it's
yeah,
not funny. Like it was the
yeah,
toughest.
very,
Yeah, I've never worked for 2 years. I've never worked so hard to try and make friends. Like
yeah,
I
yeah.
was
It's
in a very
really
small
weird.
town, but it
And
was
then,
tough.
in Australia, I feel like Australians consider New Zealand as like their little sister or something. But in New Zealand, it's very much no,
Mm-mm, mm-mm,
not fans.
mm-mm. No.
And that was, when I left, that was basically what happened. I was told to F off and don't let the door hit me on my way out. And, the
Yeah.
media took it and spun it one way and, oh, well.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
there's a proper psychological name for it, but Elizabeth Gilbert calls it the crab bucket. And it's when all the crabs are in the bucket and one tries to get out to freedom and the other crabs pull it back in. And I think,
Yeah.
lots of cultures and communities are like that. Like, where are you going? And it's tough, especially with the international thing that you touched on as well, is like a lot of our work at Lex is international. I'd say 80-90% of our work is overseas and very little is from Australia. But we were very lucky because I've lived, in Dubai, I've lived in Hong Kong, I've lived in New Zealand. So I got to have that experience. I think it's tough for Australian designers and New Zealand designers once you realize it's there are other cultures as well that, love design. It's such a good feeling going over work, like taking your work overseas.
Yeah,
'Cause,
yeah, it's been received really well. At the moment, I've only been advertising into the US, but we've done sales into other parts of the world as well. But it's really, I went up with a campaign in the US with, I created a video with our wallpapers and over the top these horrific sayings that I've been told over the years, right? Like design in beige. Oh my God, I'd call that vomit wallpaper. Who would have that in their house? So I created this whole minute-long video. And that's what I went out to advertise with. When my mum saw it, she was like, oh my God, what have you done? That's insane. Was our most successful campaign we've ever run.
nice. I can understand because when I met you and saw your work, I was like, wow, like I get it. But then more recently, when I saw the Beige Epidemic, I was like, oh, I'll give you up. Now we're at the races. Like, this is fun. I can feel this is fun. We're all in on the joke. It's not, yeah, it's so much more fun to be that way. And especially, design and beige, it can inhale you
Yeah.
with accidental snobbery.
Well, also the whole idea of that campaign was it's going to just cut through the noise, right? So people are going to love it or they're going to hate it. That campaign instantly goes on people who, so, obviously the Meta works on algorithms and all the rest of it. So anyone who was commenting thought it was hilarious or loved color, and it just kind of went like that. And it just
Yeah.
cut all the crap out from the get-go. Instead of doing, a safe campaign and having people comment going, oh no, that's not really me, that's too colorful, it instantly was like line drawn.
So I said earlier, I'm 46, and so I grew up in the 90s, and the 90s in Australia was and like we had a recession. We left the 80s and we left like big hair and shoulder pads and we went into this androgynous beige, navy or white, Stussy pants,
Mm.
Rossi boots, white skivvies. It
Yeah.
was the saddest time in the world, and it was illegal to like pink. This is my rememberings of it. And so that's why I think as well I see freedom in your work, because I see like pink everywhere. And I'm so grateful. And I say to my 10-year-old, I'm like, you don't know how good you've got it. We weren't even allowed like pale pink when I was a kid.
Yeah.
It's a whole different time, thankfully. So I can understand when those people are commenting, like,
Mm.
I can feel like where they're coming from. It's kind of still that restricted
Yeah.
mindset. And then going forward, have you got any dream projects or clients that you would love to work with?
I just missed out on one for a hotel in Singapore with a really large hotel chain. And I presented to them about 6 weeks ago, and they had literally signed off on everything 2 weeks prior. And what I had was what they'd been hunting for. So I'd come in like 2 weeks too late with the exact product they wanted. So that was pretty gushing. But there's some other cool projects, like we've got quite a cool couple of hotels that we're working on at the moment across Australia. One that's opening Gold Coast, one that's opening up by Perth somewhere, and then a airport accommodation hotel that we're working on as well. So we've got cool stuff in the pipeline. But, you know, to be able to say we've done this hotel in Singapore would have been freaking amazing.
The good thing is they know, you know, you've met them now. I always think like all those people are going on to a next project and
yeah,
right up the front.
Yeah.
And then before we wrap, I understand that Miss Lolo has a tile range. You're moving into tiles.
Yeah, it's up online now. I haven't been pushing it yet just because we've got them going into a couple of hotels. And then I'm like, oh, get really cool. We're actually, at the moment, we're kind of working off renders, which isn't ideal. And that will give me the actual, you know, in situ product. Then we'll start really pushing it. So it's all of our designs printed in Italy on tiles. So they piece together like a puzzle, you know, so you get your piece of paper and you've got 1, 2, 3, you know, and then you start piecing the tiles together and it creates the overall design. So quite a different concept. 2 millimeters thick, made of resin. Yeah, so I can do curves, go over tiles. And this is the product that on the commercial side of things has got the most interest out of everything.
Mm-hmm. Especially because curves are big right now and curves are expensive. And then tiling a curve is just, if it's done right, it's beautiful, and it's really,
individual tiles. Oh my God. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Torture.
Yeah.
Well, that's exciting. Yeah. So we'll make sure that I'll post the details and the link. That'll be available with this episode of Let's Talk Design. And thank you so much for joining us today, Tamzyn. I super appreciate it. It's been awesome.
Anytime.